Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's CC-Webinar.Live keynote and Q&A session. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to today's sponsor, HAUD. Now, before I hand over this session to our keynote speaker, I would like to invite you all to please use the Q&A chat box down below to submit your questions and comments throughout this session. Now, I'd like to hand over to our keynote speaker, Joanna Kulagowska, Head of Global Market Intelligence at HAUD. Over to you, Joanna.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here, and thank you, Career Community, for having this opportunity. My name is Joanna Kulagowska. I work as Head of Global Market Intelligence at HAUD. At HAUD, we help our customers with our technology globally to achieve maximum revenues coming from their messaging channels by putting them in center of control of their revenues using our technology. So today I'm here to give this workshop style speech, but I'm hoping for some real interaction from the audience. So we will have a Q&A session later to address all the hopefully interesting questions from the audience. So I hope you are all well. So I'll start with my presentation now. Basically, we have seen, technology. So today I want to focus on the maximizing messaging revenues for mobile operators, which and focus on the point that it's not as hard as it might seem, but it does require a new strategic approach and the change of operational processes for mobile operators. And today we want to show you how to do it. So over the last years, and especially in the last 24 months, we have seen a lot of interesting statistics on the growth of messaging as an industry and what that business messaging can achieve looking into the future. But for many mobile operators, messaging, and especially SMS, is still an undervalued channel that is not really optimized for revenue. And that is not really extremely surprising, because historically and typically growing revenue from messaging has been perceived as very complicated and time-consuming for mobile operators, for what very often has been seen as a very little reward. We need to remember that for most of the operators, the messaging P&L still represents only a small portion of the budget. And A2P SMS is used by many businesses and verticals as a very effective communication tool for a real large variety of use cases, starting from marketing and customer engagement to really very critical communication such as alerts or verification to FA, OTP. However, at the moment, in majority of the markets, SMS is still priced at the same level, with no differentiation whatsoever or elasticity applied to content, criticality, or priority of the SMS. What we see instead is differentiation of rates in some markets, for instance, between international and local rates, and if, so international and domestic traffic. And even this segregation can be very blurred and unclear and really differ within the markets, or even within one market, which causes lots of debates and arbitrage. So despite the SMS being a very mature channel for communication, we believe its charging and pricing model is, simply put, very outdated. The reason for this, we believe, the reasons for this are very often caused by a lack of technology, visibility, and insights and capability for mobile operators to enforce a more complex and elastic pricing for SMS, as well as the fundamental underlying fear of cannibalization of the existing revenues, which of course makes sense. What we do see instead is a very alarming trend of SMS pricing globally rising that poses a real threat for the A2P channel and its future, as it incentivizes the leakage, so the bypass, and leads to emerging of new forms of verification that and also an irreversible traffic decay, so stop of brands adopting SMS as a communication channel for new use cases. So hopefully today, during this session, we can show you that maximizing messaging revenues it's not as hard as it may seem, and I will try to show you how to achieve that. So today I would like to explain or illustrate the importance of differentiated pricing, bringing the lesson learned from airlines. So on the face of it, airlines and messaging are a very similar model. They deliver objects or people from one place to another. In the case of an airline, they move passengers from one location to another. For instance, in this case, let's say from London to Hong Kong. So if this plane was in a situation of the early years of aviation, all passengers traveling on this airline would have paid the same price for the journey, which would mean that the capacity revenue of the aircraft is 168 seats, charged at $2,000 per seat, and would result in the total income from the airline being $336,000. However, over time, the airlines came to realize that the customers are willing to pay more for added value services and decided to implement diversity in the quality of the service they provide. So in this scenario, the airline has differentiated the pricing of seats between economy seats, so let's say 80 economy seats at the same rate, charged at $2,000 per seat, which totals $160,000. Implemented more premium 40 business class seats with, of course, added leisure and entertainment and premium experience that they could sell at $6,000 per seat, so plus 40 business class seats at $6,000, coming to $240,000 charge for these seats. And obviously the top of the cabin with 8 first class seats charged at very premium rate at $12,500, totaling to $100,000. So the total income of the airline has increased through charging differently and accordingly to the value of the service the airline provides. So let's put this into practice. So I would like to talk through a scenario which is a common scenario as we are approaching the end of 2022, where the organization is kicking off a budgeting setting process. And obviously the past few years have been very difficult with coming out of the pandemic. And now with the things getting back to normal, there are very high expectations for the business to grow in the coming year. So the company board are looking to lock in profit figures for the upcoming year in order to return more profitability revenue for its shareholders. And the objectives here will be to increase the revenue by at least 12% without increasing the existing expenditure on OPEX or impacting negatively existing margins. So the question here is, as a business owner, what levers do you have and how would you implement them? So what are the options for messaging here really? So the option one would be to increase the pricing, so grow revenue by implementing a price increase, which is a very common practice we see as being followed by the MNOs globally. And even though ourselves at HAUD, we have a proven track record successfully enforcing A2P monetization in markets where the A2P rate is very high. Despite that higher achieved revenue potential, there are few risks that might have impact, especially when following such a sudden price increase. And the MNO must be aware of the risks to be able to monetize A2P business successfully. So the risk factors to consider here are bypass. With the international A2P rate increasing, there is definitely a higher incentive for aggregators to use illegal grey routes and attempt bypass more aggressively. This is exactly the situation we see in many markets, many operators, especially within the ones that have not secured the networks fully and correctly, where following a price increase, the traffic drops, and the incremental revenue that has been brought by the rate increasing really barely covers the erosion caused by the leakage and bypass that followed the price increase. The second risk to consider here is shift to alternative communication channels. High SMS rate incentivizes and increased adoption of alternative verification channels, such as, for instance, voice OTP or flash calling. And this type of bypass has been extremely widely spoken about in the last month, so I won't be really covering here today in much detail, but what is worth mentioning is that voice arbitrage is not the only channel that is used by aggregators and brands to reduce their spend on messaging. And in some markets, we observe regional behaviors and trends, such as shifting of traffic to various OTT channels, depending on the penetration of specific OTT channels in these markets, or for instance, an in-app notification. So as the big OTTs are prompting their users to increase the level of security and protection to protect them from identity theft and fraud by using extra layers of authentication. So we can bring here an example of, let's say, WhatsApp, really promoting and increasing awareness among their users about using more privacy layers. WhatsApp has launched a very big campaign and their major markets around privacy and privacy settings and enabling 2FA. In the same time, we see big brands experimenting with multi-factor authentication that basically is allowing the user to choose the verification channel of the choice based on their preferences, for instance, or also experimenting with using their native apps or largely used social media channels. Example here could be, for instance, Uber, that for verification of the users allows using their social media channels, such as Facebook, or allows the user to receive an OTP message on WhatsApp, for instance, if this is a preferred channel of the Uber user. So that obviously erodes a portion of A2P traffic. And the third risk that I would like to point out here today is really the traffic erosion. So the globally sweeping increases of A2P rates have already seen brands turning into alternative, cheaper routes for communication, more efficient when it comes to cost, with only most critical use cases of the 2FA remaining being used through A2P channels. And once this happens, once this erosion happens, once the brand becomes further and further detached from using A2P for anything other than this critical verification to FA or TP, it becomes very difficult, if not even impossible, to reintroduce those ideas, as they would have adopted the new channel into their operations. So an observation here that I would like to share today is that in the markets where international A2P rate is high, we observe that the percentage of use cases other than the critical 2FA decreases drastically over time, with use cases such as notification, engagement, and promotional traffic being dropped by brands over time. At the same time, in the markets where A2P SMS is low, we see the traffic profile is very much different. We see a much bigger portion of that traffic being notification, promotional, and customer engagement. So what are the options? So what other options could an operator have in this case? And another option that we see is quite widely adopted and that operators are turning into these days is that they choose to sell their capacity to a partner, an aggregator, in return for exclusivity or preferential termination rates into their network. And of course, there are benefits to using an exclusive aggregator, and these can be that a mobile operator does not have very often a large wholesale team to manage the wholesale business, and the complexity of managing building multiple aggregators can sometimes be, simply put, overwhelming. So that appointing a single point of entry and exclusive partner really reduces the operational complexity and removes the operational barrier for an operator to monetize the traffic quickly. And this exclusive aggregator is going to give a guaranteed revenue baseline in line with the conditions of the market at the price point they can generate, they can achieve within the market. And this, of course, can enable a very quick uplift and increase in revenue to a mobile operator as the aggregator increases the pricing significantly. And that is, of course, a very compelling commercial proposal. It also enables the mobile operator to completely or to de-risk the portion of their messaging business and reduce operational complexity significantly and minimize financial exposure and any bad debt risk, such as collection of funds, for instance, that will, of course, be on the aggregator side. However, this model, even though it comes with significant revenue commitments, requires the MNO to give up control on their messaging asset to an aggregator. That means that the operator will have a total control of all the wholesale players, all the origination layer that wish to terminate the traffic into the MNO's network, as well as they will retain the relationships with the main OTT brands, but and also smaller content providers, controlling the end-to-end relationship and controlling the delivery and the data of the traffic originators. And that also includes the selling rate to the market in very many cases. So the main issue we see with involving a model like this is that there is a fundamental conflict of interest involved. And instead, we believe that an MNO should really focus on protecting the value and integrity of SMS as their native channel, with a focus of really regaining a full control of messaging revenues. And there are many things that I could be talking about, how this can negatively, for instance, impact MNO, but I would like to maybe point out two scenarios today. So scenario number one is that the aggregator will sell the termination rate at a very high termination rate in order to recover a significant monetary investment they had to make, and retaining a big portion of that margin to themselves. So this is a global trend we see in the market these days, that the aggregators are very keen to increase SMS pricing quite rapidly, and that is, of course, to maximize the profit at a quick pace, while sharing a portion of this benefit with a mobile operator. So in this case, the operator is not benefiting of the full rate increase, in many cases maybe not even being aware of the market rate, as the operator does not have any visibility nor control of what the market rate actually is. So We see it as a very risky and a short-term strategy, which can cause significant A2P traffic decay, and as a result, discourage the brands from using A2P as the preferred communication channel of choice. Another scenario that I would like to discuss here today is what happens in the case if an aggregator cannot reach the minimum commitment agreed on the contractual level with an operator. So what can happen is that the aggregator will come to an operator and will try to renegotiate the agreement originally made. However, if this is not possible, obviously there are some contractual commitments that the parties have entered to. So if this is unsuccessful, the aggregator, or some aggregators, might turn into more fraudulent practices to ensure that very significant investment is recovered. One way of doing it is, for instance, generation of artificial traffic. And that topic has been, again, very widely spoken by many professionals, including myself, on various forums. So I won't be covering this very much in detail today. But just maybe to cut the long story short, what will happen is that the aggregator will generate additional fake OTT traffic, really blending it with the existing traffic volume to avoid any detection. And they will then charge this traffic to the brands, that additional traffic to the brands to achieve higher revenue. This is sadly and unfortunately these days a quite common practice that we see, but it really hurts the industry, because as a result of this behavior, we see an erosion of trust of the enterprise layer, enterprise and OTT segment in the SMS channel, and that is, of course, as a result, pushing them further to shift into alternative methods of verification that they can have more control on. So the exclusive model, even with this a significant monetary commitment, is really designed to maximize the revenue for an aggregator. That, of course, makes sense. And appointing a single point of entry is, again, it's dangerous and also a short-term strategy, because it leaves MNO and extremely little to no control of their own market strategy and their own underlying asset. So to avoid this erosion and stagnation of growth in A2P use cases, we believe operators need to adopt a new way of thinking. And instead of a single price for all message types, MNO could monetize different use cases, more critical use cases at a higher rate, while re-incentivizing the non-critical, non-2FA traffic lost at more elastic pricing models. So further in my workshop, I would like to lay out the strategy, how to really attractively price messaging by the value of the use case and certain parameters, while avoiding cannibalization of existing revenues. We believe differentiated pricing is the easiest way to sustainably grow your messaging revenues. And here is why. So every use case in messaging has a price ceiling, from sort of lower cost marketing messages and social media re-engagement campaigns through premium rate OTPs. And by charging the same rate per use case, you end up not tapping into full potential of achieving A2P revenues. However, if you adopt flexible pricing and charge what a message is actually worth to a brand, let's take it back to that airplane that I spoke about, an airline model. And it's not uncommon for a delivery service to apply premium charges, such as in postal service or delivery service, if we want our package to be delivered with priority quicker. The consumers usually keen to pay more for the premium delivery. So if we apply the same model to A2P messaging, and diversify the rates based on what the message is actually worth to a brand, growth of messaging use cases can be achieved relatively quickly. So I would like to put it into some real life scenario. So each brand has a number of communication channels they can choose from, and A2P is being simply one of them. So in this case, we can see, let's say a brand such as Amazon. So Amazon generates all kinds of communication to their customer base, including re-engagement, marketing messages, reminders, delivery reminder notifications, and it's using SMS in order to deliver these use cases. And these use cases total to 10 million SMS and priced at 3 cents, which translates into revenue for the operator of $300,000. But then what happens if the operator decides to embark on the price increase strategy? Then Amazon is the budget, the spend for A2P messaging as a channel for Amazon increases. So they will go for an exercise of scrutinizing their budgets and reviewing the use cases they use messaging from, and see if what other communication channels can they use for some portion of the traffic. So for example, they might start using email or Alexa notifications for portion of the traffic, and at the increased rate of 5 cents, they will remain sending the more critical use cases such as 2FA, OTP, customer service notifications, and re-engagement notifications for unfinished purchases, for instance, because these are more critical functionalities, more critical messages they want to send to the clients. What happens when the operator decides to increase the rate even further, let's say up to 7 cents? Then the situation happens again, and Amazon decides that at the price of 7 cents, they actually would like to remain only sending the customer service notifications in 2FA and OTP, which arose the traffic from 10 million to 7 million. And obviously, the revenue is still significant for an operator, but those use cases are already dropped for OTP. And again, the operator increases the rate to that level of 10 cents, which is not an uncommon level these days in the market. And then Amazon decides to only retain the most critical 2FA OTP use case, which translates into the traffic eroding from 10 million to 6 million for an operator, with the revenue being at $600,000. Now, what I would like to show here is how can this work in a situation where we adapt a flexible price model. So with the right visibility and segregation of the traffic, operator can gain insights on what traffic is passing through the network, categorize traffic correctly, and this will allow the operator to charge different streams of traffic at a different rate. So when we look again at this Amazon traffic, actually, the re-engagement traffic and the delivery reminder notifications and the, let's say, reminder of the new TV series, which are quite, let's say, low value use cases for Amazon, total to 1.5 million out of the 10 million of messages that generate, and those operator would remain charging at 3 cents, which was the rate was acceptable for Amazon in this case I'm illustrating before. And then the abandoned cart re-engagement, which is a more premium use case where Amazon can actually prompt the user to check you haven't really bought this item, would you like to come back to your transaction? Those could be charged higher, and the traffic accounting to 1.5 million could be charged at 5 cents, which brings us to a total revenue of $75,000. Customer service notifications of 1 million that are more critical, again, use case for Amazon could be charged at 7 cents. That comes down to 70,000 of total use case revenue. And then the most premium 2FA OTP messages that contribute to the 6 million of the traffic charged at 10 cents would translate into $600,000. So we can see that with adapting differentiated pricing, we've just increased the revenue from 600 to 790. So this is a 30% increase of revenue just for on one customer example. So in the second part of this part of my presentation, I would like to focus on building flexible pricing models for different businesses. So example of a scenario here could be that a messaging business is developing a new function within the operator to directly engage with brands that want to reach customers using HTTP. And how do you develop a framework that can be used to categorize messages based on value and based on the brands you want to work with and they want to send messages to customers? So the objectives would be to understand for typical brands, typical types of customers that are sending SMS to communicate with the users, what kind of messages does a bank need to send communication to the customers? What kind of messages do airlines need to send to their customers? What would a fast food chain, what type of messages would a fast food chain need to send to their customers? And how do we build flexible pricing models for a bank, for instance? So when we look at banking and types of messages a banking could price based on value, we see push content services, which is a very sort of low quality, low value use case of all kinds of information that a bank would like to communicate to the users, would have to be charged at the lowest rate as they are high in volume and the easiest to drop with the rate increasing. But then we have marketing campaigns, more generic marketing campaigns with no major time limit on them. So just pushing marketing notifications to customers. But there you have the more time critical or time limited marketing campaigns that a bank would like to share with the users. And those could be charged more. And then you have the customer relationship management. So more customer tailored communication that the bank would be sending to the users, that these are valued at these are more targeted, more premium, so those could be charged higher rate. And then you have the customer specific offers for banks, such as loans, information about customer specific credit cards, etc., etc. And those come with a big value because the conversion of the business is relatively higher for a bank. And then you have the most critical use cases, alerts for fraud and 2FA to really secure and protect the customer of the bank. And those messages, if categorized correctly and charged correctly, can achieve a big variety of pricing. And with the right price point, those lower value use cases can become much bigger in volume. As at the moment, for instance, a lot of them might be not happening on the SMS channel whatsoever. Perhaps the bank is using email to deliver that message or in-app notification. But if charged correctly, a bank could adopt HTTP for sending those use cases, and that could translate into very big traffic increase for that bank. In a similar way, if we look at the airline and what types of messages an airline would send to customers, and how to build flexible pricing models. What could be the categories that an airline would like to send to their customers. So we have partner offers, quite generic partner offers, low marketing promotion, such as marketing campaigns, customer service survey. What was your experience traveling with us today? Would you recommend our airline? Would you book with us again? These are, of course, very commonly used through email, but SMS could be very widely used for this use case if priced correctly. Customer relationship management, similar like in the bank use case, customer specific offers. And then the most critical types of notifications, such as required information for travel, especially with a lot of restrictions these days. We have to still, sadly, go through a lot of paperwork traveling to some destinations. So these required information for travel requirements. And the most critical for an airline, specific flight alert notifications. Your flight has been delayed, your flight has been postponed, etc., or your gate is closing in 30 minutes. And how could this look for a fast food chain? So again, we have a big variety of use cases here, from changes to terms and conditions, through marketing campaigns, so promotional traffic, and then service updates. And then customer specific offers, again, more tailored communication that is targeting specific users and more targeted to the specific needs. Delivery notifications for your food orders. And then the most critical use cases, such as order confirmations. Oh, sorry, I am going back. So this variety of use cases really exists for majority of the brands these days. The problem is that many operators have no visibility and control what's passing through the network. And without that visibility and insights, they are unable to differentiate the various traffic streams. So being able to differentiate the various traffic streams that are passing and apply differentiated pricing to them can really achieve a big uplift in adopting SMS for those use cases that at the moment A2P SMS is not being used for. We need to remember, even with the global volumes of A2P growing year on year, A2P is still a relatively unused channel by businesses. I think we've seen a lot of statistics about this earlier this year. We have a lot of data analysis coming from big data analysis companies, such as, for instance, Mobile Square, that claims that only a very small percentage of businesses are using messaging to communicate with the users. I think we're looking at about a little over 5% of businesses that adopted, businesses existing globally that actually adopted messaging for business communication, which means that it leaves an enormous potential to grow, because still on the global picture is email. It is email that is the most used and adopted channel. So the challenge is, of course, how do we rival, as SMS as an industry, how do we rival the channels such as email or the more rich communication channels? Well, the pricing model has to reflect the value of the messaging and messages that the brands are sending. And we believe that with the right visibility and technology, operators can monetize those various traffic streams based on what the message is really worth to a brand, which will lead to increase of adoption of new use cases and shifting of that traffic from the channels that are currently being used for that. So yeah, that really concludes my presentation for today. And I would like to see if we have any questions and any interaction from the audience. Oh yeah, okay, I think I found it now. We have a question: how to label these SMS by content purpose, in advance or live as they are shared? It's a very good question. So it starts with the visibility of the traffic that is passing through the network and having the ability to categorize various traffic streams. So how we do it with our technology is that we, with the traffic flowing into the network, we apply categorization of traffic. So we'll categorize traffic into different traffic streams, such as, for instance, WhatsApp OTP, WhatsApp notification, Amazon delivery, Amazon OTP, etc., etc. This can be achieved by analyzing the content of the message, if you will, so specific patterns and specific traffic streams that the brand is using. And then what can be done is that those can be charged based on that traffic pattern at a different rate, even if they're coming on the same connection. How to push this market model to brands? I've done it in the past a little, but it's sometimes not well understood on their side. Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. How to push this market model to brands? I think it starts for operators. It has to start with the conversation and the direct engagement with the brand to understand what is that the brands are willing to pay for a specific use case, and really focusing on understanding what are the new traffic streams that can be generated in case that traffic would be charged at a lower rate. And I think some markets in the past have tried to adopt some diversity and some elasticity in pricing when it comes to SMS. And in many markets, I've seen it over the last decade. I've been in the messaging industry as a flop. Is this the right word? As a real flop. And there were fundamentally two reasons for that. Reason number one, if an MNO does not have a direct relationship with the brands, is of course very challenging because they are out of that. It's out of this conversation whatsoever. So they need to rely on the aggregator layer, the CPaaS layer, to go and bring that message to the brands. And of course, the aggregators might not be incentivized to do that work. Yeah. So it starts with this direct engagement with the origination layer. Obviously, mobile operators have a tremendous and very strong brand presence in their respective markets. So it only makes sense that they would like to shorten the value chain and go after the largest enterprises and have a discussion of what can A2P SMS be used for. Second reason for this very often being a problem in the past is that it can create significant operational complexity if not easy to control and enforce. So it really starts with this direct dialogue, I would say. And it would be nice if you would explain to me if what did you think that the brands could not understand in that model? Because I think from a brand perspective, it makes a lot of sense that the different use cases would be charged differently. But of course, I understand that in the messaging, specifically in the messaging ecosystem, I think the whole ecosystem has been used to that transactional pricing model. So SMS is an SMS, so it should be charged the same rate. Whereas when we look at different businesses, airlines, postal services, delivery services, it's quite common for those differentiated pricing to be adopted. Sounds really a no-brainer. But I think fundamentally in our industry, SMS has always been charged a transaction fee, and that transactional fee has been fixed for many years. So yeah, I would say, long story short, how to answer this question, I would start with the direct engagement with the brands. Yes,
Hi, Joanna. Hi.
Hi, Robin.
Sorry, I came in. I was there, but I was not. I was on mute, so I could not
No
speak.
worries.
Happens, I think, happens on a technology word.
We have this joke since 2020. You're on mute, isn't it?
Yeah, do. So I was looking at your pricing system at the end of the slides. So the way you described, although I work in India market, India domestic and ILD front, international messaging front. So
Yeah.
how would you categorize that to an Indian market, which is a large scale market, and a good revenues out of it too? How would you channelize your pricing strategy to India market? I understood your strategy for maybe a European or America's market, but how would you categorize that to an Indian Oriented market? Because in India, the categorization of messages are not as per you described, not in the enterprise side or not in the aggregator level too. But still, I see a value which can come out better for the operators than today. How do you?
Okay. Yeah. So when you say that in India the messages are categorized in a different way, is there any? So to my understanding, and please forgive me, I mean I might not know as well the Indian market as you do. To my understanding, for many years in India there was a specific differentiation between the messages that are promotional and transactional. And that was how it's been categorized traditionally. Is this still the case, or what is the
Yes. So now with TRAI is a telecom regulatory authority of India, bringing in a new technology called distribution ledger transition, like DLT. It's called
blockchain.
now with that, categorization has happened into 4. One is service implicit, service explicit, OTP, and promotional.
Yeah.
But the rate are not categorized as per service because consumer enterprise it is not aware of this differentiation or categorization of the messages. So consumer doesn't know it. The market doesn't want the information to go to him. So we cannot change the pricing as service implicit, explicit, and promotional differently. So how would you? What could I thought you might have researched about it a little bit. If you have, can you share some guidelines, some inputs?
So is the message rate regulated by the TRAI for both categories? Is it regulated on the So I don't see if it's not a country regulation that imposes operator to charge a specific rate for specific traffic stream, I don't see that it should be possible to be able to differentiate the pricing. The challenge here would be that the traffic would have to be recategorized, because at the moment, if you just categorize them to different chunks, such as OTP and let's say promotional, then the promotional basket becomes a very big basket. You know what I mean? It's a big basket. So you need to apply differentiation based on looking into various parameters of the message. So those parameters can be very simple, such as based on a specific sender ID, for instance, or a specific connection, or can go to a very big complexity, but actually analyzing what we call a message signature. So it's the pattern of the message. So you see no notifications, no messages are random. So all messages reassemble some kind of a pattern, whether it's a delivery notification or customer engagement, they will be sent back. So for instance, with our technology, what we do is that we recognize these patterns and we apply charges based on the pattern of the messages. So let's say we have a brand A, Amazon, for instance, sending different streams of traffic, and we can recognize what is the actual traffic profile. Is it OTP? Is it a notification? Is it customer engagement? And you can apply the complexity and elasticity based on the operator's choice, really. So it can be relatively simple or very complex, if you will. But it starts with the visibility and categorization of the traffic, because you need to separate the various traffic streams. Because if you simply differentiate promotion and transactional, but you don't actually check what's what. I think in India it's being done relatively well because of this blockchain implementation. But in many markets, what we see is that an operator will come up with a pricing strategy. I think we've seen it in some markets, let's say in Southeast Asia in the past, the operator would say, okay, we want to charge you premium for premium traffic, which is OTP, 2FA, maybe critical, or maybe financial traffic, or etc., but then charge you less. What it will cost as a result is arbitrage. If you don't look at actually what is passing, you can cause an erosion point, and that will result in your premium traffic coming through the cheaper channels, which is not as it was intended, so it will decrease the revenue for operator. So what we do is that we apply real-time traffic categorization and real-time traffic charging. It doesn't matter which channel it comes from, we will recognize that the message is Amazon customer survey, for instance, in this case, because we know the pattern of the message, and this will be charged accordingly.
Understood your point. Understood your point from you. Thank you very much for conversation. I understood. I have some points which I can work upon myself from your decision. Thank you.
Sure. You can link up with me through LinkedIn. We can have a chat after this.
Thank you very much for the. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. Very interesting question.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if anyone has any follow-up questions, please reach out to me through LinkedIn or through the LinkedIn post. I think Carry Community always shares. Also tell your friends to rewatch if they're interested, to your family and friends. And so yeah, if any questions, any follow-up questions, I'm always there to have a chat. Thank you very much for being here today, and thank you for your questions. Thank you, Carry Community, for having me. Always a pleasure, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Joanna, and thank you to everybody who tuned in to this CC-Webinar.Live session. The session will soon be made available through the CC Media portal to view, and we'll be looking forward to hosting you at upcoming CC events for the remainder of the 2022 calendar and for upcoming 2023 events. Please keep in touch with us and follow our activities through our social media channels. For now, bye for now. Stay safe. Good health.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.